Hey, true crime fanatics, this is Claire.
And I'm Andy.
You're tuned in to the Homicide Hobbies podcast, which is a podcast for people who love to hear about the horrendous crimes that people commit. Enjoy.
So today we're going to talk about Gary Ridgway. Trigger alert. We're going to talk about strangulation, rape, stabbing, and necrophilia. And for those that don't know what necrophilia is, it's having sex with a corpse.
I like the pause for drama.
Suspense. I do what I can.
I feel like you've got to have a bad sense of smell to enjoy stuff like that. Just saying.
I did not think of the smell. You got me beat on that one, Claire.
Not a win I wanted.
But yet it's one that you've got.
Okay, go on.
All right. So we've got Gary Ridgway. He's also known as the Green River Killer. And can I just say that I'm going to totally date myself here, but I 100% had Fievel Goes West flashbacks of the conductor screaming Green River.
Yeah.
Every time I saw the reference to
Green
the Green River.
Yeah. Next stop, Green River.
Like,
I can picture the little mouse with his little timepiece
pot belly and the little clock. Yes. Next, yes, 100%. I 100% am not going to lie. And if you hear me chuckle at all through this, that's what's running through my head is the mouse with the watch and not anything having to do with the case. But
well, I can try every time you go to chuckle, just Green River, not to make a mockery of the impending doom that will come with the Green River, but go ahead, ruin a movie I like.
I do what I can. Anyhow, so Gary Ridgway is also known as the Green River Killer. His full name is Gary Leon Ridgway. He was born February 18th, 1949 in Salt Lake City, Utah. Gary claims that he's killed 80 women, most of them being prostitutes, and his time frame for when he was murdering was like the 1980s to 1990s. In 2003, so that's a big stretch, the 80s to 2003. But in 2003, he pled guilty to only 48 of those murders. Only 48 murders.
When was he arrested?
2003.
Huh.
Yeah. His father was a bus driver and his mother was a sales clerk in a men's department. Now, Gary claims that his mother participated in inappropriate behavior. We'll get on that in just a second. It's also noted that Gary had a low IQ and he was severely bullied in school. Gary has he sat down after being convicted and everything, and he's talked to psychologists, and he was a noted bedwetter up into his teen years. And his mother...
problem with that, having been a bedwetter well into later years of my life.
You were like 6.
Andrea, I had that stupid mat that I had to sleep on that would like jolt me awake. It was sick. I remember that. I was older than 6. It's fucked up things. They probably wouldn't use that shit now. You want to talk about aging? That goes well beyond your Fievel thing.
Am I...
I should be a serial killer, but look at me. I survived.
Am I supposed to edit this out? I'm not editing.
You can leave it in there. It makes it real, Andrea. But it's just one of those, I couldn't have my friends over because I'd have that stupid screen mat on my bed. I remember when our neighbor friend would come over and she sat on my bed and was like, "What is this?" "Nothing. Let's go downstairs."
So for those that don't know, it was like 2 pieces. It was a 2-piece mat that plugged in or connected to a battery or something. And it was a piece of plastic. And then it had like a metal screen.
I like how you're describing it. I had to clean that if it woke me up.
and then the pillowcase had to slide over the metal screen. And the second she peed on it, it would send off an alarm. At least it didn't zap you.
It's not how I recall it.
Really?
It probably didn't, but I would say it was loud enough and scary enough that you want to, yeah, it'll go off again because I just peed again out of fear. But it was 2 screens, the pillowcase slid over it, and then it was a rubber piece on the bottom so you didn't pee on the mattress. But it was not comfortable, mind you. And it would make a noise, like crink. It was stiff. Again, it was embarrassing. Probably why I'm a light sleeper now. It's not funny. It's some fucked up shit. And I'm just saying that being a bedwetter later on in like the young-ish approaching teens, it doesn't make you a bad person. Nope. But we kind of got off topic. Feel like we scratched the surface of some underlying issues I might still be working through.
Like sleeping good?
Fuck you. Anywho, so we're judging a bedwetter. Go on.
It's one of the 3, one of the 3 signs of a serial killer or a sociopath.
I didn't realize we were checking boxes. Awkward. What are the other 2?
Oh gosh. So anyway, you weren't a teenager, by the way, and you weren't even a preteen. You were still in the single digits.
Again, I remember those.
Yes, but you were, I swear you were on the younger elementary school side. Like 8? Hey, at least it went down in my history as you being like 5.
I was not 5 because I remember, I don't want to say her name so that way I don't call her out, but the gal across the street that I would hang out with.
Yep.
I know I was at least like 5th grade.
Oh, shit.
That's why I was saying that I was not 5 or 6 because we didn't hang out in kindergarten. That was like 4th and 5th grade.
Okay.
So that's where just like, and you know what's interesting? You discuss this with our mother and she'll have the same reaction you did and not recall. Like,
no,
granted, I remember. I remember.
I was not actively involved in this. I am only 3 years older than you, so I was dealing with my whole middle school issues. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thanks for leaving me in the living room with that. Anywho.
Can I tell you, wait, still side note, sorry everybody that's listening. So my 6-year-old is a heavy sleeper, so he sleeps in one of those nighttime pull-ups. And mom told me I should get him that contraption.
I'm not kidding. I think that's why I'm a light sleeper. Any sort of noise, if I hear, like, if one of the dogs get up and they're drinking, I fly awake. Like, Dave can sleep through that shit. But Dave being my husband, for everyone who doesn't know, but he will sleep through that, but everything wakes me up. And I think because of that little meh, meh, meh thing, that was the worst noise ever.
That was the reason I started sleeping with my door shut.
Thank you. I started to inconvenience you with my bladder.
Oh, gosh. Anyhow. All right. Back to Gary and our Green River.
Bedwetter.
Okay. So I think I'd like to note sets you aside from Gary as a bedwetter is his mother. He was in his late teens, by the way. And his mother would wash his genitals for him.
Right. So glad for that separation between the two of us. But I would have liked, before you got to that little tidbit, that you already said he had a low IQ. Why didn't you throw that little nugget in there that, Claire, you're a borderline fucking genius. And that's where it divides you two. You were just so deep in your heavy thinking of the world problems at a young age that you just went along and peed your bed. It's not an issue. But definitely thankful for our mother not scrubbing my genitals afterwards.
This case is so fucked up. We've gotten so sidetracked.
Am I reacting too much? I'll be quiet.
No, it's perfectly fine. I'm literally dying over here, though.
I'm starting to break a sweat over here on my well, it's Dave's chair, so.
Get the swass on the chair for him. All right. So anyway, Gary's mother would wash his genitals when he would wet the bed.
How old was he?
He was a late teens. So to me, late teens is somewhere between 15 and 17.
Even 12 is fucking disgusting.
Yes. Well, he said at that point, he began fantasizing and having violent sexual fantasies regarding his mother, and then began fantasizing about murdering her.
I don't want to say I agree with the whole murdering thing, but I can understand that at that age, who knows what she was saying while she's cleaning him up. Like, I can understand where the hate's starting to brew there.
So at 16, Gary stabbed a 6-year-old little boy because he wanted to know what it felt like to stab somebody. So he's a prize. And his mother, her name's Mary, she would tell Gary stories about the men getting erections while she measured them for their suits. She would get into details, and she would describe the smell of their genitalia.
How close was she getting with the measuring?
I guess pretty damn close. Or maybe,
like she's a
wait,
ball
or maybe,
sniffer? What kind of tailoring is that? That is not how they do it at Men's Warehouse, I assure you.
or maybe those men's wives did not take the clothes to the dry cleaner often enough. So they had a pungent odor.
I would hope my husband's pants don't. I'm not sniffing them either.
Well, Mary would
forget.
Mary would smell them and then describe it to her son. So I get it. I get the disliking his mother. I 100% like this woman is.
Yeah, but I don't get the leap to stabbing the little boy.
Yes, that one's a leap. I don't get, I did not say I understood that, but I understand the dislike for his mother.
Although I
like,
guess
leave my genitals alone. What?
That should go without saying. Leave my genitals alone. But
it's my no-no square.
Why is it a square?
I don't know. It's a song.
Oh, never heard of it. But
I'll have one of your nieces or nephews sing it to you later.
I do not look forward to that. But
anyway,
maybe he stabbed the boy because it's just like everything else that we've seen when people take advantage of somebody who's not going to put up much of a fight. And he said his IQ is low, so we'll go with that.
And I think because he was probably seriously hating on his mom, that he couldn't really take his anger out on her. So he took it out on a child that was weaker than him. But good old Gary graduated from high school in 1960. He was 20. So
I shouldn't laugh at that. Because I was going to say there's probably other people who have struggled and not gotten their high school diploma early on. But I'm curious how low his IQ was. Like, are we talking he's borderline officially mentally retarded?
So it says that his IQ was in the low 80s.
Okay, so functioning.
Yeah. So, anywho, after he graduated from high school, he served 2 years in the Navy, and they sent him to Vietnam. And then once he got out of Vietnam, he settled in Seattle, Washington. He became a truck painter for Kenworth. Shout out to my hubby. Slightly alarming that this guy has the same career path as my husband, but other than that, they have nothing in common. Over the next 30 years, Gary married 3 different times and had one son named Matthew. So Matthew was born in September 1975. His first wife was Claudia Barrows. They got married in 1970 and divorced in 1972. And then his second wife was Marcia Brown, and they were married in 1973 and divorced in 1981. So I'm assuming that that's Matthew's mother, because I know it's hard to keep track, but
Yeah.
they were married in 1973. Matthew was born in 75, and then they were divorced in 81. So, and then his third wife, his last wife, was Judith Lynch, and they were married in 1988 and divorced in 2002. So around the time he was arrested originally.
Okay.
Anyhow, he also had sex regularly with prostitutes. His wives had said that he had a relentless sexual appetite. He demanded sex multiple times a day, and he also insisted on having sex in public, and that still wasn't enough for him, so he sought the attention of prostitutes.
That's a lot of sex.
It's a lot of sex. And he's getting older, so again, if we're going with the high fives on keeping it up, he's got quite the stamina. So in 1980, he's arrested for choking a prostitute. He claims that she bit him, so then no charges were filed. In 1982, he was arrested for solicitation. Now, I read a couple different articles, and it was really hard to pinpoint a certain date. But also in July of 1982, I'm not sure if it's the same woman, but that he was arrested for solicitation with. He picked up a woman in July of 1982 with his son in the car.
Ew.
So
how old is the son?
So, well, it gets better. He picked the prostitute up, and then he told his son to walk home. His son was 7.
What the fuck?
So son has to get out so the prostitute can get in so he can get some. And around then, they believe that's when he began his killing spree.
Not to get lost, but when his son's 7 and this is all happening, he's already divorced from the mom?
So that was in 1982. He was divorced from her in 1981. So yes, they had been divorced for a year.
Not making it okay, just trying to formulate it in my mind if he's walking home to mom to let him know dad is having his way with a prostitute and told me to walk.
Well, it doesn't say that she's a prostitute, just a woman, and we'll get back on that in a second. But it says that in 1980, when he was arrested for choking that prostitute, but then he claims that she bit him, so no charges were filed, he was still married to his second wife. So I'm wondering if that was kind of like because it takes time to go through a divorce. They were divorced a year later. So I'm curious if the arrest had anything to do with the divorce. I'm sure it did.
Yeah.
That's just crazy. But anyway, so it says that the woman he picked up in July of 1982 and then sent his son walking, his first victim was a 16-year-old girl who was in foster care, and she ran away from her foster home, and she went missing in July of 1982. So there are no reports that I could find that confirm whether or not the 16-year-old was the girl that he picked up and then sent his son walking. I don't know if that's the same person or if it's 2 separate victims, but his first victim was a 16-year-old girl in July of 1982. A week later, her body was found in the Green River, hence the name, the Green River Killer.
The Green River.
Thank you. In the next 2 years, Gary raped and killed more than 40 women.
2 years?
2 years. Yeah, that's a lot. Many of them were prostitutes or runaways. Have you watched Dexter? Because this is 100%. So the new season that just came out, spoiler alert, there's a guy I forget his name, but he literally is doing this, and he takes runaway girls and he kills them, and then he preserves them in some bunker. It's really weird. But
yeah. I think that runaways are easy pickings because they're already reported missing and nobody's going to know when they'll turn up. So if they never do, they don't know what happened to
Yeah.
them anyway.
Yeah. Sad. Always let people know where you are.
Don't
His
become a
early
lampshade.
Exactly. His early victims were all found in or near Green River, hence the nickname Green River Killer. Once he blew up his Green River dumping spot, other victims were discovered in the remote woods in the area. So he's still kind of stuck to that general location, just not so much in or on the banks of the river anymore.
Mm-hmm.
After 1940 or 1984, he committed several more murders until 1998. By 19, huh?
I was going to say that I think that just the sheer number of them in a relatively short amount of time is insane.
It's insane. Like, when did he have time to do anything else?
That's exactly what I was thinking of. Just literally, when did you do anything else? Like, go to a job, do anything?
So I can tell you, I don't know. I can actually tell you this from experience. Truck painters, if he's simply painting the trucks for Kenworth, painting, while it does take a couple hours, they make good money. Like a truck painter, it's such a small, like there aren't very many people that do that trade. So it's a high earning job. So if he's not doing any of the prep work, because that's what actually takes all the time up, and he's just doing the painting, he's got plenty of time on his hands. By 1982, police thought that they might possibly have a serial killer on their hands because, 40 women have gone missing and their bodies are piling up. So, yeah. By 1983, Gary was questioned about a prostitute that went missing because a witness saw the prostitute get in his truck. And then he denied the allegations and passed a polygraph test in 1984.
I'd like to know what the questions were.
Well, so the polygraphs, they measure like your breathing and your heart rate and like how much you're sweating. If he's completely content with his psycho behaviors, then he's not going to get an accelerated heart rate unless he's getting turned on by being possibly caught, because I know that there are some of those weirdos out there. So I feel like if you have any type of anxiety or remorse or anything like that, that's what it would pick up on. But if you're a true sociopath or psychopath, it should be fairly easy to lie your way through it, right?
I would think, which is one reason why they're probably not admissible, and it's just something to go off of rather than actually used as evidence.
Yeah. Detectives learned that he was found with a prostitute in his car in 1982 with the solicitation charges that he was so he was charged, but then the charges were dropped. Or no, that was in 82, he actually got the solicitation charges. So because of those solicitation charges, police suspected, because a body was found 2 years later, that Gary was their killer. Does that make sense? So because where he was pulled over and found with a prostitute in his car and he was arrested in that specific spot, I guess they made a note of where he was when he was arrested. Yeah. 2 years later, they found a dead body there. So they immediately jumped to the conclusion that Gary was their killer. I mean, they're right. I don't know how they connected those dots, but they were on point.
I think it's because it's like a rural area. So it's just a weird spot to go. And there's not a lot of traffic with prostitution wise.
Yeah, maybe.
Now, given I don't know whereabouts on the Green River this occurred, but I have lived out there, and I do remember going fishing in the Green River because I got the heebie-jeebies a little bit, not thinking that I would fish up a body because the odds I feel like would be low. But it is a pretty area, but it's not one that I would imagine there'd be a lot of soliciting charges right there.
Gotcha.
Think Shenandoah. So it's just like, It's boonies.
Gotcha. Well, in 1987, police get a search warrant. So they suspect him in 1982. He denies it in 1983, and then he passes a polygraph in 1984. And then in 1987, they finally get a search warrant for Gary's home and for at his paint shop. They found nothing. They found no fibers, no ropes, and due to the limited technology, even with the DNA sample, they couldn't match it to the semen on the bodies in 1987. Like, they couldn't even match it.
Yeah.
However, with the advancements in technology in 2001, his DNA matched, and he was arrested the same day.
Piece of shit. It does
Yeah.
make me glad technology has come as far as it has.
Oh,
That,
yeah.
I mean, that we don't have, I don't want to say we don't have anything to worry about, but even so much as you don't need as much as you used to when it first came out for comparing DNA.
Yeah.
But pieces of shit like this guy, he wouldn't be able to do that today.
Well, and I sent you the picture of him. He's not the best looking individual. So,
We will share that.
yes, we will. Eventually, he confessed. I mean, at first he denied it, and then he was like, all right, so you have my DNA, I'm going to run with it. He confessed, and I quote, "I hate most prostitutes. I did not want to pay them for sex. I also picked prostitutes as victims because they were easy to pick up without being noticed. I knew they would not be reported missing right away, and they might never be reported missing." So, like you said, they were easy targets.
Yeah.
In 2003, he entered into a plea deal and was sentenced to 48 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. So
Still too good for him.
Yes, but part of the deal was he had to help locate some of the undiscovered bodies.
Did they find them all?
They didn't find them all. I believe they found a handful more. I can't remember the exact number, but I think it was like maybe 3 to 5 more bodies. So he was charged with the 48, and I think it ended up being like around 50 something. I'm not sure.
So I did look it up, just for reference of earlier when we were discussing his IQ being 80. A person is considered intellectually disabled if they have an IQ less than 75. So he was barely operating.
He knew enough.
It's just crazy to me that he was able to not leave more evidence. I know that they couldn't do a whole DNA thing right then, but just, you would think that if he's not that bright, it wouldn't be that hard to outsmart him.
True.
But not to say I'm not a police officer. I know they've got a hard job going in blind, so it's easier to say knowing everything that we do, or we do know now. But it's a lot of people to go and get murdered. And then
Yes,
it took them a long time to do the whole, we might have a serial killer.
Yeah, it took a few years.
Yeah.
During all of his confessing and fun stuff, he admitted to having, so Gary would kill these women and dump their bodies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he would return to where he dumped their bodies and he would have sex with their corpse.
I know this is going to seem like a weird question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Are we talking like he dropped them off somewhere and then come back days later? Or like when he was dropping them off and they're still relatively warm, he's having sex with them? Not that I feel like either one's a good answer, but again, with the smell and as people start to decay, I'm just trying
I want to say it was over the course of a week to a couple days until he found his next victim. Because you figure if he was killing 40 women plus married and raising his son, which we have more information on that also. I mean, man, he was an active guy.
I am about to vomit just thinking of that. I am going to hope that it was in a chillier time because, okay, so Washington State, not very hot. It'd be definitely different than a week in, say, Alabama of stewing in mid-August than August in Washington State. Still hot, but like mountainy wise, they wouldn't decay as fast as 100 degrees. But still, a week later, like I'm picturing the smell of a deer or a skunk when you drive by. Like that's how he was able to relocate them to go and have his way with them a second time. He could smell them out.
He's definitely disgusting. He would lure the prostitutes into his car and make them feel safe, and he would show them pictures of his son to like lure them in. And he would engage in sexual activity, and after sex or during sex, he would wrap his forearm around the front of their necks because he'd be hitting it from behind, and use his other arm to pull back as tightly as he could. So basically putting them in a chokehold and then strangle them to death.
I find the whole showing somebody a picture of your son a weird foreplay activity.
Right? It's very strange. Well, he admitted that there was one time that he had sex with a corpse while his son, I don't know how old his son was, while his son was asleep in his pickup truck 30 feet away.
That's so disgusting. But, also not surprising because since he wanted to have sex in public with his wife or girlfriend or whoever she was
Wives. Yeah.
that he kind of probably didn't know his son was asleep when he was doing it, or the excitement of I'm doing this and he could wake up at any moment and catch me was the thrill. It's really disgusting. Like my stomach, I thought it was a strong one, but I have too vivid of an imagination. I can almost smell it. That's how, like...
One of his victims still remains a Jane Doe.
Nobody missed her?
I don't know what her circumstances were in life, but I have a list of all his victims, and his youngest was 14 years old, and they were all between 14 and 26 except for 3. One was 31 and one was 36, and then the other was 38.
It's so many people.
It's a lot. And he admits to almost 80. Actually, no, he claims he's killed more than 80, but I don't know how much of that is just trying to make himself sound scarier. Yeah. He does have 49 confirmed victims. And psychologists said when they spoke with Gary, when he stabbed the 6-year-old boy, he said he was interested in stabbing because he was sexually attracted to his mother and he wanted to kill her for making him sexually attracted to her.
That stems back to his mother.
Yes. And some experts believe that Gary's killing sprees were due to misplaced matricide, which is when you kill your mother, murder of your mother.
Did he murder his mom?
No, he never killed her. So they think he was unconsciously killing his mother and having sex with her over and over and over again.
It's disgusting. I could see that. I might not know this one, but did she die or was she alive when he was doing all of this?
I believe she was alive because it doesn't say whether or not she was dead.
I was just curious only if it was like that was the tipping point, like she killed over of natural causes, so now that started the whole he missed his opportunity.
I was curious about Gary Ridgway's son, Matthew, because like what kind of guy was this, like his dad? And Matthew claimed that his dad was amazing. He said his dad was never violent. He was a great father. And when he would have his visitations on the weekend with his dad, they would camp in Washington and Oregon in different parks on their weekends together. And Gary taught Matthew how to play baseball near Green River. Expensive. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Gary has fond memories of his dad Matthew has fond memories of Gary putting him on a child seat on the back of the bike and riding in trails, and they would stop and play at the parks and stuff. Like his dad would attend his soccer games, and he's still to this day, because his dad, Gary, is still in prison. He's 73 years old. He's in Walla Walla prison in Washington. Matthew visits him and speaks with him regularly, and he said he loves his dad. So
I wouldn't be surprised if you did like a pinpoint of where they would camp or where they would do their little visits and games, if it was around where he had left a body.
yeah, so I thought the same thing, because I would be curious to know if maybe when his son was asleep at the campsite, if he would sneak off and do his thing with the corpse.
100%. Like, I think that's exactly what it was, because since he clearly liked to go back and visit, I think he would think it was suspicious if he was just doing that all the time by himself. But if he brings his son, they're just camping, you know? He wasn't over there fucking that corpse. They're just fishing.
Don't mind the body.
Yeah. Oh, my penis smells like rotting flesh. Don't mind that.
I don't know why you'd be smelling his penis.
Talk to his mother. I don't know why you'd go around sniffing anybody's penis, but apparently it's a family pastime. Don't ask me, Andrea.
Oh my God. This was not a funny case, and I feel like I laughed through the whole thing.
Sorry.
Oh my gosh. Well, I'll post the picture of the two. I believe he still has two Jane Does, and we can post those pictures. The Jane Doe B17 is still unidentified, and she was discovered January 2nd, 1986. And her remains got separated from her body. Like she was somehow dismembered. So some of her,
probably as she decomposed creatures wise, was he burying people or he was just chunking them?
I think he was just chucking them because he wanted to go back and visit their bodies.
Yeah.
It doesn't really say that he buried them.
Well, you make a good point that if he's going back to have sex with them until I guess they're just too decayed for him to be interested, that it wouldn't make sense to keep digging them back up.
So Jane Doe B17, most of her remains were found January 2nd, 1986. And then they had also found some of her remains 2 years prior, and February 18th, 1984. All right, yeah, 1984. And they later were able to match that those were all from the same girl. And in 2003, Ridgway took responsibility for her murder. And then there's also Jane Doe B20. She was discovered in August 2003, but because her remains were partial, they couldn't reconstruct her face. Yeah. They could not determine her race. They estimate she's between 13 and 24, but she was murdered. They're guessing she was murdered sometime between 1970 and 1993.
That's so sad.
So Jane Doe B20, there's no way to identify her at this point. I mean, I guess if they were able to get some kind of DNA out of like her bone marrow, and then she had a relative, like with the whole ancestries.com, I don't know if there's a way that they could sync that up.
I thought that's how the Golden State Killer was caught. That's why he was an old man, is one of his family members did that. And then they were able to link it.
I'm looking it up. You're right. He was caught because of the genealogy tracing that people volunteer to do. So
I would think if they could get DNA from those
the remains,
unknown people. I mean, I'm kind of curious if just like the tomb of the unknown soldier, same thing there. That there's somebody who's connected to be able to track these people down.
Yeah, because it's not like these people appear out of thin air.
I just think it's really sad. Now, I know that there's lots of people that have gone missing So it's not like no one reported them missing. They just have no way of connecting those cases. I just think it's sad that they've gone as long as they have with no closure. Hey, you made me defend him for the bedwetting. I feel like you were throwing all us late in life bedwetters into a class of serial killers that is not right. So I did my justice and I stood up for us wee people. You see what I did there?
Yes.
We, Andrea.
The last thing I have to say about Gary Ridgway is psychologists believe the reason he slowed his killings was because his third wife that he married, that he actually really truly loved her and she satisfied whatever needs he felt he was lacking. And
she was a sex addict.
Maybe, but she kept him in line, basically. So Judith was able to tame the beast, and she says that he was never like violent, and she truly loved him, and like that he was a great husband. But
there's a lot of whack jobs out there that have that, though, that their family members are like, no, they were never that person.
Crazy part is he turns around and says in an interview that he fantasized about killing her multiple times.
She just thought it was a game that they were playing when he would put the pillow over her head.
Oh my God. But apparently it was consensual.
Evidently. That she's just like, oh, I like it. Keep I feel like I'm treading into a weird note.
You went there a long time ago.
Yeah, probably so.
So I also looked it up just so I could answer your question. His mother, Mary Ridgway, she died August 15th, 2001.
I wonder what she had to say for that boy.
I don't know.
Although, wait, you said he didn't get arrested till 2006 or something?
No, he was arrested in 2001.
So same year she died?
Yeah.
Huh.
That was a bad year for him.
I really couldn't give a shit less. Like, I hope he's skull-fucked every hour of every minute in prison since he enjoys sex so much.
You never know.
I was just thinking of our first case that I hope he doesn't have a choking hazard.
I'm going to guess not.
Not yet.
If you haven't listened to our first episode, you should go back and listen. Just in case I decide to leave that in.
It's a real gag.
Oh my gosh.
In the event you do. I'll leave it to you whether you want to live that little nugget. Thank you for listening to Homicide Hobbies. I'm Claire.
I'm Andy.
Follow us each week to get your fix of the atrocities that occur in true crime. And don't forget to tell people about us and rate us if you like us. But don't rate us if you didn't. Just change the channel.